Yesterday, I talked about the films that most disappointed me, but now it's time to get positive as I count down my favorite films of the year. We had comedies, action films, films about real people, and ones about charming fictional creations we became attached to. So let's begin with my number 10 choice, an unexpected indie gem about the good feelings a piece of media can bring to somebody. Briggs Bbear. In the beginning, it seems like this film will be about a post-apocalyptic hidden society in which one young man entertains himself with a surreal Teddy Ruxpin-style fantasy show. And then it takes an interesting turn, and I was delighted by every story choice the filmmakers implemented here. There's something endearing about Colin Mooney's young dreamer James and his want to continue a show he grew up with. This is a funny movie, but there's also a lot of heart here as we see him making new friends and explore an unseen world. Briggs Bbear also serves an ode to creativity and how imaginative ideas can bring people together. And if you thought The Last Jedi made great use of Mark Hamill, his role here also takes full advantage of his talents. This film flew under the radar, but definitely try and seek this one out. My number 9 pick is a touching love story between a janitor and an aquatic creature. The Shape of Water. I think a major reason why people gravitate towards Guillermo del Toro's work is not just because of his great visual eye, but also because he clearly loves his characters. And those characters are normally outcasts, and a few of them are even monsters. This is a beautiful film which is at its best when we see the growing connection between Sally Hawkins' mute janitor and Doug Jones' amphibian man. Their chemistry is excellent, and they make it rather believable. Through this film, del Toro touches on the subject of prejudice, and while those themes are fairly obvious, he does in a way that is very captivating. Even Michael Shannon's sneering villain has more going on under the surface, though our loyalties obviously lie with the fish dude and his new girlfriend. This is the kind of film that launches into an old-fashioned dance number, and somehow it fits. And number 8 is another lovely story about a bull with a big heart. Ferdinand. A lead protagonist who doesn't want to fight, a pro-animal message, a commentary against bullfighting, and it's from the director of Rio. Of course I love this film. There's something subversive about a film like this that seeks to reject gender norms, and while on the outside it seems like the typical be-yourself message we commonly see in animated films, there's more going on under the surface. While the physical comedy animation is no perfect, and Carlos Sedaya and his team managed to fill the film with a wide array of lovable comic relief, there is a laid-back quality to this film befitting the subject matter. The film knows when to be poignant, and it hits the proper emotional impact. The biggest come from scenes that don't even have dialogue, and just let the animation tell the story. Even the casting of John Cena as Ferdinand works, as he himself uses his own background to enhance the character's emotions. This is one of the sweetest films of the year, and it's the sort of movie I wish we got more of. And number 7 is a darker tale of a small town gripped by a tragedy, and a mother who takes any means to prevent it. 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Coming in and seeing Martin McDonagh's name on the poster, you might expect another crazy comedy like In Bruges. Instead, he creates something unpredictable that makes one question every single character and their moral complexities. This is a film that tests the audience, and I'm not surprised it's found a bit of backlash since its release. Everyone in the cast delivers, and McDonagh makes this town feel alive. Nobody is really a hero, and the few villains here are not just your cardboard baddies. Mildred is certainly in the right a lot of the time, but the film works in peeling back her less positive traits, and also how anger is not necessarily the proper solution in facing society's ills. There's been some controversy over how the policeman, played by Sam Rockwell, is written. I've seen McDonagh being accused of writing a redemption arc for him, but I think the film clearly spells out what a terrible person he is. The surprises come from how they flesh him out, so he's not merely a mustache-twirling evildoer. The film manages to mix the comedic and dramatic moments without feeling jarring, and I certainly did not predict where it would go. Sitting at number 6 is a biopic that does not follow the usual rules of the genre. I, Tonya. I don't know a single thing about figure skating, as it's not a sport I follow, and I'm certainly not an expert on Tonya Harding, nor have I ever really looked much into her life before the release of this film. And yet, I was riveted. Rather than going for a standard cradle-to-grave biopic format, I, Tonya instead cleverly showcases the multiple viewpoints and surprisingly does not seek to vilify nor make us sympathize with Harding. Through this movie, the filmmakers instead seek to highlight the toxic nature of abusive relationships, whether romantic or parental, and how they affected her career choices. I'm absolutely certain she would have been an even better skater without her mother's horrible parenting skills and her abusive husband's actions. The mock documentary format works in the film's favor, and come Oscar time, Margot Robbie is the lead actress I'll be most rooting for in that race. And number 5 is one of the most original action films of recent years, Baby Driver. Leave it to Edgar Wright to create an action movie with a soundtrack driving the plot, as music plays such a pivotal role in the titular character's development. The car chase sequences are excellently directed, as further aided by the brilliant editing and masterful sound mixing. It's clear how carefully Wright planned each sequence, but he also has a clear admiration for the lead protagonist. We're on his side from the beginning in a joyous sequence of him merely dancing in the driver's seat. Ansel Elgort has terrific chemistry with Lily James, making one of the sweetest romances I saw on screen last year. The screenplay is clever and funny, with one of the most brilliant uses of a Pixar movie I've seen. Edgar Wright is one of those directors who has a real knack for using outside references, but in a way that's never obnoxious and instead fit naturally with the environment and the story he's telling. He takes full advantage of the locations, and the story spins its wheels in a delightfully entertaining fashion. Every actor contributes something special to the film. Yes, even that elf in the room that is Kevin Spacey. But his participation should not take away from the hard work and determination that went into putting together one of the summer's most delightful escapades. My number 4 choice is a story of those people we don't often think about, living on the outskirts of Disney World. The Florida Project. A series of short scenes beautifully connected together, I was utterly transported to the side of the Sunshine State I was unfamiliar with. Sean Baker manages to take us to the point of view of these children, and there is an honesty in how their lower poverty lives are depicted. There's almost a Peanuts feel in how it shows the various ways they try to find things to do during the summer at this bright pink motel. It's also a touching mother-daughter story, and the complete polar opposite of I, Tonya, as the film shows a mother with a clear love for her child and works so hard to keep her innocence intact. This was the first film for Brooklyn Prince and Brian Vinage, and I totally bought the bond these two had. Willem Dafoe was oh so excellent as the manager stuck between doing his job and feeling sympathy for this mother trying so hard to support her daughter. There are multiple funny moments in the Florida Project, but the emotional elements really sell the film. Capping off with my favorite ending of the year, if this did not expand wide enough to reach your neck of the woods, I definitely recommend seeking this one out when it hits DVD. And number 3 is another film that cleverly mixed comedy and emotion to tell a story about real people. The Big Sick. There was something genuine about this film, as it detailed how Kumail Nanjiani and Emily V. Gordon met and fell in love. Nanjiani makes for an excellent leading man, proving to be both funny and charming, and also selling the more dramatic scenes. The best come from his interaction with his comatose ex-girlfriend's parents, played wonderfully by Holly Hunter and Ray Romano. The Big Sick also succeeds in providing insight into how Nanjiani deals with being a Pakistani American. However, the film is able to make it specific to that culture and getting us to understand how these families interact, and yet there's also a universal relatability there. The screenplay is understandably getting a lot of attention, but Michael Showalter also deserves recognition for his direction, as he handles the tone remarkably well. I hope to see more collaborations between Nanjiani, Gordon, and Showalter in the future. This was a romantic comedy that proved there is still a way to make that genre work without resorting to expected cliches. Number 2 is one of the most joyful experiences I had at the cinema last year. The Lego Batman movie. Even before we see the opening logos, the laughs immediately begin and never stop. Chris McKay and the team of writers and artists who worked on this film take full advantage of the Lego format, while also making this a special Batman adventure in its own right. Batman has seen so many iterations over the years, and this seeks to be a celebration of the legendary superhero while having some fun with him. There's a clear admiration for the Cape Crusader and his entire rogues gallery. Yet it's also surprisingly poignant, as the movie dives headfirst into Batman's long-running battle with the Joker and also his adoption of Robin. The action scenes are directed with a proper energy, and the film has a lot of fun with other intellectual properties it gets its hands on. From beginning to end, you cannot wipe the smile off my face. And finally, my number 1 movie of 2017 is Dunkirk. With this film, Christopher Nolan sought to bring us into the famous evacuation of soldiers on the beaches of Dunkirk, and expertly jumps between 3 different locations. An incredible use of editing, he's able to alternate between 3 moments in time, and make them match seamlessly, and the story never becomes confusing. Like that ticking clock that frequents the soundtrack, Dunkirk continues moving and never loses those moments of tension. Never showing the face of the enemies just makes things that much scarier. Nolan also avoids many of the cliches of the war film genre, and somehow makes the people feel more real. I was personally invested in everyone, whether it was the soldiers on the beaches, or the pilots in the air, or the family on that little boat traveling across the water. There was never a point where I got tired of one story and wished it would move on to the other. The cinematography is also key, as they put us headfirst into the war zones. Most importantly, it never trivializes the event and becomes a real tribute to those Brits who risked their lives as they sought to survive this war and fulfill their duty. We feel the fear they're going through, and that creates the proper emotional response. And those are my favorite films of 2017. I would love to know what yours are, and here's to more wonderful movies in 2018.